people are familiar with Erickson's psychosocial stages of development. But he even puts it as stair steps to give you this false impression that it's happening in a linear way. And yes, you just come to the next step, and then no. This is something that is taking place, but sometimes they step down. Sometimes they take 3 steps back. And those of you as an adult, I'm sure that you know that, because many of you are probably between green young adult to gold older adult, but I'm sure that there are many who are still grappling with industry versus inferiority, which they say for grade schooler. And what that means is when you are learning new skills, being able to acquire a new skill and not feel bad. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier about making mistakes. Industry, being able to do something, right? And not feeling inferior when compared to other people, you may not be at the same space or the same place where another person may be. I know adults who still grapple with that. But these are the things that the stages of psychosocial development that Erickson identified are more prevalent during these certain stages of life. And so it's important for us to know that when we are talking about teenagers on this chart, they're saying that they are grappling with identity versus role confusion. So what that means is that this is a period of time where teenagers, in addition to all those hormones that are happening in their bodies, they're trying to figure out, who am I? What am I about? And so as homeschooling parents, for many of us, I think that as homeschooling parents, we are so engaged. And sometimes we risk being a bit overbearing. We risk being a little bit more demanding in terms of, you're going to do it this way because I'm your teacher. And that's natural because of the environment that we've created, that they start to know us as their teacher, we're their advisor, we're their counselor, we're all these things. But as teenagers, what they need most of all is to be able to have spaces to begin to understand who they are as people, who they are as learners, who they are as thinkers. And the ways that they do that are the opportunities that we give them to have the ability to express themselves, to produce and to create, to be able to explore. And that is what needs to be most inherent when we are curating this learning experience for them. And I will continue to use that word. Curating is often connected to museums and the people who bring in the exhibits and create the exhibits and the things that you learn. That's what we're doing with our children, because we're not always teaching them or the lead teacher. We may take them to a space where someone else may be teaching them. We may take them, engage them in a class. We may actually buy the supplies and put them on a shelf and tell them that they have the freedom to use this space as they see fit. We've curated that space for them, okay? And so it was important for me to start here with what our beliefs are regarding homeschooling and teenagers, to understand the development stage that they're in right now, for us to then move into thinking about those services and those supports that we offer them in order for them to enjoy an opportunity. And this is from Advancing Youth Development Theory, AYD, which I mentioned earlier, because I'm introducing this to you because I think that a lot of times as educators, we confuse an opportunity and an outcome, all right? So just to give you some clarity, an opportunity, I used to work when my daughter, actually I started before she was born, and I worked there for maybe 2 years after I had a nonprofit called Covenant House, Washington in DC. Worked there for almost 6 years. And that's actually where I learned about AYD theory. One of my favorite places to work. Covenant House, Washington serves youth between the ages of 16 and 24 who are most often homeless. And homelessness can look like couch surfing or what have you, or at risk of dropping out of school, becoming teen parents and things like that. So I was assistant director of a teen pregnancy prevention program. And one of the things that we offered children was young people were opportunities to get jobs, right? And the person that was in charge, they were just so proud. All of these businesses that were willing to have these youth come and work with them, right? But you started to notice that some of the young people weren't showing up. They weren't coming to the interviews that they had. Upon investigation, they didn't have money to take the bus to get to the interview, or they didn't have clothes to wear at the interview. When we talk about services and supports, services are the things that we do for young people. Supports are the things we do with them. Both of those are necessary for them to enjoy the opportunity, right? So a service that could be done for a young person in the scenario that I gave with Covenant House is you have, and what eventually was developed was a clothing closet so that kids could go in and get clothes or what have you for their interview. Also, they were given bus tokens. See how old I am? Bus tokens. Do we do that anymore? This is before the past, right? And so bus tokens, clothing closet, right? So think about your own homeschooling practice. What are those opportunities that you want your children to engage in? And before they can engage in them, what are the services and the supports that they need? Some of us realize already that our teenagers, if they want to aspire to college, right? But we've been homeschooling them all their lives or what have you. They're not really adept at taking tests because that's not what you've done with your homeschooling practice. So a service, something that may be done for them is, and it's also a support, is having them go through some type of SAT prep or placement test, something like that. That would be considered a service or a support for them to enjoy the opportunity of being able to start that process of applying to college. The outcome is what you ultimately want to happen, and you want the child to be able to demonstrate. So I think that a lot of times the opportunity and the outcome gets kind of conflated. Attending college is the opportunity. College completion is an outcome, it's one, but a lot of times it's not the outcome that you want. The outcome would be what? What do you think? Anyone can just speak up. What do you think, if your child is going to college, what do you think the ultimate outcome is that you want?
To get a job.
Yes, yeah, right. But as you even say, to get a job, that specificity sometimes is missing, right? What kind of job? What kind of job do we want? Also, you know, is college really necessary for that job, right? And so those are the kinds of things that we think about in the midst of it, but not necessarily before we even begin the process. So let me go back to the chart. So what my recommendation is, and this is actually what I do trainings also for educational institutions and when I'm coaching parents, start from the outcomes. What are those things that you want? What are the things that the child wants to do? You'll find out based on those outcomes whether or not college is even what's necessary for them to meet those outcomes, it's particularly if we're talking about professional goals at this point. If we start backwards with outcomes, this is what we want. Jay will be able to do da 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 da. Then we start to determine, well, what are the opportunities Jay needs in order to be able to do da 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 da. Then we start to think, who and how is going to what and who, how, and what is going to make this happen. Those are your services. Those are your supports. Supports are the things done with the child. Services are done for them. Okay. And so if you go backwards, and this is a great chart, I think, a visual to give you an idea. If you start backwards, then you can, remember that mission statement I talked about? You can start to be more in alignment with what it is that both of you want, your teen as well as you. And this is actually a great exercise to engage them in, for them to become co-curators of their learning experience if they haven't already begun that process. And it's as simple as it seems, it actually forces you to be more specific. So even when I ask that question after college, what is it that you want to get? And you say a job. Well, when you are identifying your outcomes, you can be more specific. Okay, Jay, you want to get a job. What kind of job? And you can use this as a way to get more specific, so that they're starting to think about all the possibilities that they have at their fingertips, and that all of their possibilities don't have to result in the same journey that you see for other children, if that makes sense.